Alright, so what is the hardest part about healing from narcissistic abuse? I would like to suggest that it is the healing journey itself from narcissistic abuse that is the most difficult part, and I'm going to explain why. So this is part 2. If I didn't know I was going to make a part 2, but if you haven't seen part 1, go to part 1. That one was more along the lines of forgiveness and involving my own healing journey. I kind of wrapped up my own healing journey from narcissistic abuse in that video, but this one is going to be more focused on specifically narcissistic abuse. So go back and watch that video for, I guess, some context. What is that? Context. And but basically what I talked about in that last video is that forgiveness feels like death. And in this video I am going to just expand on that even more. So going back to what I said in the beginning about narcissistic. Why is that word so hard to say? So going back to the beginning of what I said with narcissistic abuse is that the healing journey is the hardest part in itself. Why is that? Well, let's take a look at the narcissistic relationship, right? What's the first stage? It's the love bombing phase. And in that love bombing phase, what happens? A trauma bond is formed because essentially what a narcissist does is they feed you this story that they fit perfectly into your life and they are the most perfect thing for you, and there will never be anything like them ever again. That they're your soulmate and this is it, essentially. And they will love bomb you with compliments, with gifts, with all sorts of stuff, and you're like, this is the best thing I've ever had in my entire life. And basically you are fed this narrative of perfection. They are absolutely perfect. And then a trauma bond happens to where you're like, well, this is what it is, and there's no like, this is just what it is. This is who they are. This is what it is. And then what happens is the manipulation starts, the gaslighting starts, the stonewalling starts, all of that kind of stuff starts. And then you're like, okay, maybe we're just having trouble. And you're always trying to get back to that heaven that you were in, that fairy tale place that you were in, because that felt so real and so true. And you're like, whatever we're going through right now, it doesn't matter. We just need to get back to that place. And that cycle never ends. And then what happens is if the narcissist thinks you're going to leave, then if you've been through narcissistic abuse, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. If the narcissist thinks that you're going to leave, they will love bomb you temporarily again, just to kind of string you along, and then the abuse will start happening again. Now, when you start to heal, once you leave the relationship and you start to heal, the healing is so difficult because every step forward that you take in healing from that narcissistic relationship is a step away from that perfect story, that fairy tale, that soulmate. Every step that you take in your healing journey as you heal is a step away from what you once thought was your forever, was your person, was your soulmate. And this is why it's so difficult for people to even heal. It's because they don't want to leave that narrative. They don't want to leave that story because it was so perfect. It was heaven on earth. And they're like, why would I want to leave that? This is why victims will constantly go back to their abusers. And then that gets into, I could even talk about the physiology and how if you have a adverse childhood event, aka childhood trauma, and your cortisol levels and adrenaline, there we go, and your adrenaline is raised, and then you come back down from that, you get addicted to stress hormones because everything else in life just feels dead. No excitement, nothing. So you will intentionally find yourself in relationships and go towards stressful situations because you're addicted to those stress hormones that was elevated to insane levels when you were a kid. And to feel any excitement in life, you have to go into these stressful, toxic relationships or toxic situations. And so if you don't heal, obviously, then you're just going to constantly find yourself back in these situations. So all that to say is that this is why it's so difficult to heal, because you're not just addressing and giving up that story and that narrative and breaking that trauma bond. You physiologically are having to change your entire system to move on from this relationship, from this toxicity that you've been in a cycle of basically your whole life and you hadn't even realized it until now. So in a weird way, stick with me in here. I'm getting to like the forgiveness and why it feels like death and all of that. As you're healing, which is already difficult, and if you watch the first video talking about forgiveness is death, this will make more sense. So as you're healing, you're feeling like, and this is why it's so difficult, you're feeling like you are having to kill, you're having to like murder a story, you're having to kill this narrative, you're having to bury this person, and in some ways bury yourself, the old self that fell for that. And sometimes you don't want to change, and that's really difficult. So as you're healing, as you're learning to forgive, which is a process, it's not an event, forgiveness is a process, you feel like a killer. You really do. And you are having to grieve a story, a person, yourself, them, who you thought you were going to spend forever with. You're having to grieve, and it feels like you're killing. It really does. And that, for me, that's the way that I have found describes the feeling that I'm feeling as I'm healing, the feeling that I'm feeling as I'm healing. There it is. I might as well be a rapper now. I'm not gonna do it. I was gonna attempt to rap something, but I'm not, I'm not gonna do it. Anyway, and this is why, in a way, healing feels like betrayal. It feels like you're betraying that person. It feels like, and you said you were never going to, right? You wanted to keep your promises. You wanted to keep, you said you were never gonna give up. And so you wanna hold on to that. You absolutely want to hold on to that. And so you feel like you are not only betraying this person and this individual because you're like, oh, they'll change. They won't change. You feel like you're betraying this individual. You're having to kill this story and this narrative. You're having to kill the old version of yourself and the person that you thought that they were. And you're doing the killing. You're doing the grieving. You are doing the betrayal. In a lot of ways, you, in order to heal, have to become the darkness that you never swore you were going to be. You feel like the evil one. And I want to briefly touch on this because, a lot of people in this situation will say stuff like, well, they'll change. And, that's why some people go back and la da 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 da. But the thing is, especially like holding on to the story and you feeling like you're holding on to the story, but you having to embrace this darkness that you never swore that you were going to be, because you said, I'm never going to give up on you. I'm always going to love you. You're my forever. La da 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 da. That to you was love, but, love is like, I'm never going to give up on you. But the reality is, and I could sit here and say, the reason why you feel that way is because you're so loyal and you have so much empathy, and which is true. You are a loyal person, and there's this word empath that's been thrown around. I don't know how I feel about it personally. I don't know if it's a psychological term or a spiritual term. I don't know. But you're loyal and you are loving and you have so much empathy. I could say all that, but the reality is you have an anxious attachment style. There's kind of 3 attachment styles when it gets into like attachment and attunement. There's the anxious, there is the avoidant, and then there's the secure. And there's a lot more to it. Maybe I'll have to make a video on that. I don't know. But study that stuff. It's very essential. So, you not giving up, thinking, oh, I'm not going to give up on you because I love you and I said I was going to for forever. That is an anxious attachment style. That's something else you need to heal. But saying all of that, you're still at this point, anxious attachment style or not, you're like, I don't want to give up on them because that's love. I would like to suggest something to you. You have to come to terms and face the possibility in this whole journey that you have never, ever felt true, unconditional love before. Because your version of love, what you have always known love to be, and if you didn't have this belief, then you probably wouldn't have fallen into the narcissistic relationship. I am preaching to the choir on this one. This is me. But your version of love, what love is to you, is toxic. it's manipulative, it's abuse, it's mistrust, it's gaslighting, it's stonewalling, it's all this toxic stuff that is chaos. That to you, in the environment that you grew up in, whether you had a childhood traumatic event, adverse childhood event, ACE, or something else, or maybe it was your family environment. Love to you is this toxicity, is this chaotic, manipulative thing, this narcissistic thing. And guess what? I mean, you already know this, but that's not love. And until you heal, you will never know unconditional love. And you will never know how incredible love can truly be. So in order to get to that point, in order to forgive, in order to leave the past behind you, which is another whole subject, and getting into PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder being that the past is ever constantly in the present and you have to leave it behind you. And what I'm going through right now, I'm tying that in with like forgiveness and things like that. Leaving the past behind you, burying the past, killing the past. In order to do that, what it feels like to me and maybe to you is you actually have to become the darkness that you never swore that you were going to be. You have to kill that story. You have to give up on that story. You have to kill the old self, the unhealed self. You have to bury that part of you. And it feels like betrayal. You're not betraying anybody. You're not betraying yourself, but that's what it feels like. That's absolutely what it feels like. And I've noticed for me, I'm like, even in my head and in my heart, I'm like, I feel like a murderer. I do. I am having to consciously, every time that I have ever thought about breaking no contact, that to me is like I'm just further burying, like, and I choose to not break no contact. I am further killing and burying and grieving that old narrative, me, them, everything. And it is not easy, and anybody going through this right now knows it is not easy. It's like you have to rewrite a story that you were convinced was etched in stone, was written in the stars, however you want to put it. That soul connection, you have to rewrite what you thought was laid in your path, and it was destiny. It was etched in stone. That is not an easy thing to be done. And if you're still watching this video, it means that you want to do that and you want to change. So congratulations, you're very brave, you're very courageous, and you are a self-healer. Welcome to the journey. I'll tell you this, and you already know this, but you have the power to rewrite your story. You have the power to change your life, to change how you act, to change how you react to people's behavior and who you let into your life. You have the power to change and rewrite your story, for it to be something better than you could have ever imagined. Better than any story any narcissist could have ever fed you. So with that being said, I think I kind of flipped this idea on its head for myself, and it's been working for me, so I want to share it with you. I dare you to love yourself as much and more than you loved that narcissist that you were with, or that is in your life. I dare you, because I am willing to bet that you have put yourself to the side for their needs, which is part of the reason why they chose you, because they knew that you were an extreme giver and they're an extreme taker. So I dare you to give to yourself, to sacrifice for yourself as much as you have loved and sacrificed for them. I dare you. Easier said than done. Way easier said than done, but way worth it. So incredibly worth it. And guess what? There is so much hope in all of this. There's so much hope in everything that I just said, because the fact that now you are aware of what your idea of love is, and that you're aware that healing is a possibility and that you have the power to rewrite your story, it means that that love is available to you. It means that that love, that true, unconditional, unrelenting love exists. and you have access to it now, because now the switch has been turned on and you're aware of, oh, I have these issues, I have these problems. Now I am healing of all of it, and this is now, I'm aware that this love is a possibility, and it's tangible. And I say that, and don't assume that, oh, now this love is tangible and so I am going to have somebody come into my life. Maybe, but be your own soulmate first. Be your own best friend. Love yourself unconditionally first. Teach yourself what unconditional love is and what that means. That's powerful. That will make you unstoppable. And that right there is what's going to attract that person with a secure attachment style, who is who they say they are. And yeah, it's going to attract that person, that true worthy soulmate, or whatever the narcissistic relationship was that you are in. It's going to attract that. It's good stuff. I have this in my notes, so I just got to say it. But in order to receive that love, in order to receive that unconditional love, and to have it, you have to rewrite your story. You have to forgive. I know this is a video about forgiveness, and I haven't even used the word forgiveness a lot, but it really is forgiveness. I talked about it a lot in the first video, but forgiveness is putting the past behind you. And you know, there's the saying of forgive but never forget. No, wait. Forgive and forget. What I say is forgive but never forget. Forgive and let go. But always remember that story of transformation that you made yourself. Always remember, you know, that's why we remember the past. It's like, so it doesn't happen again. So don't forgive and forget. Forgive and let the past be the past. Forgive and let go. Way easier said than done. Letting go is not an easy thing. Not easy at all. But once you learn to do it, once you learn to embrace the feelings, work through them, have love and compassion for yourself, then it's easier to let go. And really, I think a big part of letting go is you don't want to let go because you don't think anything else is better. You're still so attached to that narrative. But once you start to find that self-love, that unconditional love for yourself, and you see that that story and that narrative doesn't even compare to what you've already had inside you, then it's so easy to let that go. It's about where you place your value. And you place your value on things that you love. And right now you have a skewed version of love, which means you have to heal in order to see what true love is. And you have to love yourself, and you have to rewrite your story for yourself. So I really hope that this helps somebody. I'm just kind of I feel like I'm verbally vomiting, because, you know, I'm obviously preaching to the choir, going through this myself, and I'm just really sharing the things that I'm exploring and that I'm learning and researching and all of that good stuff. So I really hope that this helps somebody, and if it did help you, I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to, you know, talk with you, chat with you. Please leave a comment telling me your thoughts and telling me, you know, what you've thought about this whole video, but forgiving, and especially forgiving a narcissist and how difficult that is. Yeah, I'd love to know your story, so let me know. Please like, subscribe, share this video with people that you think would benefit from this, and see you misfits in the next one. Peace!